Growing up in England, of course, I did not grow up with Thanksgiving, and it's always been fascinating to me in the years that I've lived here, just joining other family traditions and seeing what this holiday is really all about, which seems to be a very day instead. That's when we have turkey. No, that's not. It's actually true, but that's a lot of Jewish people, and it's Thanksgiving dinner I ever went to was in Jerusalem. When I was studying there at the conservative yeshiva, some of my friends, most of whom were American, my fellow students there, wanted to host a Thanksgiving dinner and got a real kick out of it. That three of the people at the Thanksgiving dinner were a Brit, a South African, and a Hungarian. My good friends Greg and Ondi. Greg is a rabbi in Cape Town, South Africa, and his then girlfriend, now wife, Ondi, is from Budapest. Interesting that they're going to be here in January because Ondi is getting smicha from Aleph in January. Anyway, so celebrating Thanksgiving, my fellow students decided to do a very radical retelling of the Thanksgiving story with puppet-sized pilgrims and all of that. And I was a vegetarian, but I actually ate turkey that day because I was told it was a mitzvah and Yom Hodu. Since then, I've celebrated Thanksgiving with a lot of different friends and family members, and it's fascinating to me how it becomes ritual. For some people, it's really just eating a very big meal, everybody overeating and then falling asleep in front of the football game. And for other people, there's ritual around it. I've been to Thanksgiving dinners where there's been a whole kind of liturgy of singing certain songs, and of course everyone going around and saying what they're grateful for. So even though I didn't grow up with Thanksgiving, I am part of a Jewish tradition where Thanksgiving is a daily practice, of course, and everybody, I think, appreciates and knows that our tradition is full of opportunities to give thanks. In fact, the very first words that we say when we wake up in the morning traditionally are Modeh ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam shechazata bi nishmati bechem la'araba emunatecha, which is basically thank you. I'm waking up, I'm aware that I have a new opportunity for a new day with a body that is able to give thanks for all of the things it can do, with a soul that comes back into my body. And so many other ways in which our liturgy is punctuated with thanksgiving. Psalm 100, which is said every day in the weekday, is Mizmor LeTodah, a psalm of thanksgiving. Hariyu l'Adonai kol ha'aretz, and then it says, Ivdu et Adonai b'simcha, serve God with joy, as if serving God with joy is part of what it means to live a thankful and grateful life. And then Psalm 92, which is a psalm for Shabbat, Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat, a psalm for the Shabbat day. The next line is, Tov lehodot l'Adonai u'lezameh l'shimcha elyon. It is a good thing to give thanks to God. And so many of us, I know even people who don't have a Jewish practice have a gratitude practice as part of a daily practice of saying, okay, even when things feel really tough, like, how can I express my gratitude? How can I give thanks? And the relationship to this in this week's Parsha is really, really fascinating. As I mentioned earlier, the story of Leah is a really tragic story in a certain way. There's a very radical statement in the Talmud by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai who says that Leah Imenu, Leah our mother, was the first person in the Torah to express gratitude for God. And the idea that someone whose life has actually been so miserable, she's been unloved in very profound ways. She's got quite a lot of bitterness in her relationship with her younger sister Rachel, and of course her relationship with her husband, whose love she never seems to be able to get. And yet she, according to the Talmud, is the first person to express thanks. And of course the context of it is the birth of her fourth child. The first three children, there is so much pain in the names that she gives them. May God see me in my pain. May God hear me in my pain. Shimon and Reuven, both of whose names are about a deep and painful anguished cry to be seen and to be heard in her suffering. And then the third child is almost like a concession. Levi, at least let there be some kind of connection, some kind of accompaniment, some kind of connection between me and my husband in the naming of Levi. And then the fourth child, she names Yehuda. Yehuda, because she says, Pamazot Odeya, this time I'm going to give thanks to God. And so even though she's in pain and miserable, she is expressing thanksgiving in this very profound way. And what's amazing about it is this idea that, so many, in spiritual practice, having some kind of daily routine of thanksgiving is not, of course, when life goes really well. It's actually the most important time to practice thanksgiving is when life feels really hard. And that's really what the Musar texts say, because thanksgiving is often known in Musar texts as Hakarata Tov, which is the capacity to see the good even when life feels bad and to express gratitude for it. And the idea is, not, oh, life is so good, I've got so much to be thankful for, but life is actually painful and challenging, and still I have to be thankful for. Rabbi Shai Held from New York, who's one of the Rosh Yeshiva of one of the leaders of Hadar, says something so beautiful about the Leah story. He says it's one thing to be grateful when everything is wonderful, when all our dreams have been fulfilled and all our hungers sated. But it is quite another to be grateful when life is complicated, when some of our most cherished dreams have remained painfully unrealized, when some of our yearnings are so intense that they threaten to burn right through us. Leah is the first person to feel and express gratitude ever, and especially amid profound sorrow and enduring disappointment. And of course, the name Yehuda becomes the name of what it means to be a Jew. There are three identities that come from the Torah, all from the book of Genesis, that give us our identity. Avraham ha'ivri. Avraham was the Hebrew. Ivri is translated as Hebrew. And la'avor means to cross over. Avraham was one who dared to cross boundaries and cross over to the other side. In this week's Parsha, we have the naming of Yehuda, which is about thanksgiving as one of our identities. To be a Jew means to express thanksgiving, some would say. And then next week, we have the third identity, which is when Yaakov wrestles with the angel and becomes Yisrael, the one who wrestles with God. So between these three identities of the one who crosses boundaries, the one who expresses gratitude, and the one who wrestles with God, we have what it really means to be a Jew. What is interesting and a little bit painful, as some of us know, is that Hamas don't talk about Israelites. They talk about Yahud, about Jews, and their global jihad is against all Jewish people. So there's a sort of harsh irony that, in a sense, if we take the identity of being a Jew as being the one who expresses gratitude, can we still express gratitude when all things feel really hard? Of course, I'm very grateful that there is a temporary ceasefire. Hopefully it won't be a temporary ceasefire, and that there'll actually be some kind of magical resolution that we can't imagine right now. But at least for now, not only are those 13 Israeli hostages and 11 Thai workers and 1 Filipino released from captivity, but also there's a reprieve, and there's tons of, probably not enough, but tons of humanitarian aid going into Gaza. And so even though we're still in the midst of a war and there's a lot to be really pained by, we can still say thank you. Thank you to God, thank you to whatever forces we want to thank for. And so I think that's why I wanted to read that prayer from Rabbi Naomi Levy, because it's really a thanksgiving prayer for those who have been released. And we know there's so much more work to be done. There's still well over 200 hostages in Gaza. But then another aspect of this, which it was a very, very, very painful week in the community here, with the awful and tragic loss of a beautiful 6-year-old first grade girl called Ellie Berg. And the pain throughout the community has just been so intense around that loss. And yet every day I've been to that Shiva house, and the gratitude being expressed by her parents blows me away. Because there's something about the practice of Shiva and the practice of having people constantly around, which they so are needing right now, and people bringing them food, where they're just, even though traditionally a mourner is not meant to thank anybody for coming to a Shiva house because it's supposed to be our mitzvah to pay respects to mourners, there's something really, really, they are so moved by the way in which community is showing up for them, including many, many people from this community. And it's been incredible to see a family who've just been through the most unimaginable tragedy that any family can live through, and yet they're still able to say thank you. They're still able to feel that sense of gratitude. And so I think that's the power of this practice. Expressing gratitude is easy when life feels good, right? It's easy. Although sometimes, of course, we forget, which is a whole nother aspect of why some would say it's more of a mitzvah to say a blessing after eating than it is before eating. Because sometimes when we're full and, overstuffed with our whatever we ate for Thanksgiving dinner, we may not be then feeling this, we're just so bloated. I think that's the experience of many people, isn't it, at Thanksgiving? We're so bloated that we just want to sort of, curl up on the couch. But actually, when the Torah says, "Ve'achalta v'savata uveirachta et Adonai Elohecha la'aretz hatova asher natan lach," that when the Torah says, you will eat and you will be satisfied, and then you offer blessings. So on the one hand, it is really true that from the place where we feel most satisfied, we offer blessings. But it's also true that from the place where we feel most in pain and most anguished and most ready, perhaps, I think when parents lose a child, it's probably the time that we're closest to wanting to just give up any sense of hope and be caught up in despair. But if in those dark, painful moments, we can still find the capacity to say Todah, Todah shebatem. That was my experience when I was in Israel, was that wherever I went, whether I was with families of hostages, whether I was with the young IDF soldiers who uncovered the horrors of the massacre site at Kibbutz Be'eri, wherever I was, wherever we were as a group, people would say, Todah shebatem, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. It means so much to us. All of my friends and family members that I regularly keep in touch with in Israel, even just a little short WhatsApp message, just thinking of you, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Thank you for sending that text. Thank you for showing up. So I think this Shabbat of Thanksgiving weekend is really a reminder in the tragic story of Leah. The fact that Leah, who is this unloved woman, who constantly is trying to find Jacob's love and birthing all of these children, and she is somehow able, amidst her anguish and her pain, to say, I'm expressing thanks to God. And so all of us, whatever we're carrying, whether in our personal situations and our families, or whether, of course, as so many of us are, the anguish that we have over the continuing war in Israel and Gaza, and just that we can still find those deep places of gratitude, of being able to say, in spite of it all, I can still say thank you. I can still say thank you to whatever the God is that I pray to, if I pray to a God, or I can just say thank you to being part of an amazing community where there's so much to be grateful for. I feel very grateful for all of the people in this community, and there'll be more about this, but really all of the people in this community who got together to have a beautiful new kitchen waiting for me when I came back. It was hard coming back because not only had I come back from a very challenging trip to Israel, also as you know, lost my uncle, my mum's baby brother, and coming back to the excitement of the people like Linda Lowenstein and Karen Diamond and Jennifer and others who just sort of really put so much love and passion and generosity into creating this new kitchen for me. You know, on one hand, in the light of what's going on in the world, it's sort of trivial, but on the other hand, it's not trivial at all, because there are all kinds of ways that we show up for each other, all kinds of ways that community supports each other, and all kinds of opportunity, even or especially when life feels so challenging and hard, that we can say, Toda Rabba, thank you. So thank you to this community, thank you to everybody, and let's continue over this Thanksgiving weekend to find opportunities to acknowledge and to thank each other and the ultimate source of all of our gifts. So Shabbat Shalom and happy Thanksgiving weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you to Harvey for leading us in